Hello and welcome, Exiles. Let's talk Path of Exile 2 and Exilecon. I watched it all, and I'm here to give you the bullet points and my takeaways from it. To start things off with, it's two separate games now. Path of Exile 2 is going to be its own game. It's not going to be an expansion upon PoE 1. The idea given to us was the developers are now going to develop both and stagger the leagues so that way you get more time to play Path of Exile, either it's 1 or 2, in a staggered format. So that way, if you're somebody who normally gets bored at month 3, well, maybe you have something cool to do at month 1.5 instead of being burnt out. And that means a lot of PoE. That means they're trying to dominate your time. If you love PoE, it's a great thing. If you just like PoE 1, maybe it'll feel the same if they keep developing PoE 1 consistently. And if you don't like PoE 1 or you're getting kind of like burnt out on it, and you like this fresh new thing that PoE 2 is, then maybe it's going to be good for you in terms of just PoE 1, PoE 2 cycle, then PoE 2 cycle, and then PoE 2 cycle, and maybe every 1.5 years you go and you try PoE 1 with all the new stuff that changed since the last time you played it. It's a cool idea in theory, and I want to believe they can do it, but they have to prove it's doable. The past 2 years, me and most other Path of Exile players have been okay with lackluster balance changes. We've been okay with lackluster leagues because we've said, you know what, they're working on PoE 2. They've split the dev team entirely. We have a much weaker force here. That's why it's so lackluster to what we're used to. And the truth is, now that we know they're going to be separate games and they're saying they're going to develop both of them, well, now they need to back it up. PoE 1 needs to start getting expansions again. It can't be once every 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is. We need to go back to the days where every single 4 leagues, every 1 year, we could expect an end game boss to be revamped, newer, something cool added to the game. We kind of need that, because if you're a PoE 1 guy and you don't like this new PoE 2 balance change, the new changes they're doing to it, you kind of want them to say, hey, if we're keeping PoE 1, you want them to back it up with some developers being put into it. This also means PoE 1 needs to get real ascendancy, skill, passive, gear, and balance changes again. I don't make excuses for PoE 1, for GGG, if they have to say, I'm going to develop both games. Previously, I've said, you know what, these changes are meh, whatever, it's fine because they're developing PoE 2. This is okay, PoE 2 is going to fix everything, but now that they're saying, hey, we're going to do both, well, they got to back it up. It cannot be 2 lackluster ascendancy changes per league. That's not going to cut it. The old PoE we're used to was always just a massive shakeup of new cool things happening, a lot of awesome changes usually, and what we got this league was, hey, Chieftain, a 1% player-based ascendancy is now a 0.1% player-based ascendancy. That's not going to cut it. You can't just kill an ascendancy. You got to give it new cool things. You got to give it some buffs. You can't just take a bad ascendancy and make it worse. That's not going to fly. So if they want this to happen, they got to back it up. Number 2 on the bullet points is PoE 2 no longer fixes PoE 1. There's a lot of bad or iffy systems or things that could get better in PoE 1, and it was always the answer to say, oh, PoE 2 will fix it. Like, for example, when they showed us the new gem system of making gems, swapping in and out, swapping items, all that stuff, it sounded like a great solution to the current clunkiness and basically pain of PoE 1. We're like, oh, that'll fix that. Well, it won't now. What's happening there? Graphics, assets, early game. Some of the weakest stuff in PoE is how bad it looks in certain areas. Are they going to somehow overhaul this? Are they going to somehow make this better? Is all the work they've put into developing and improving their engine, is it going to be seeable? Are we going to see the improvements to PoE 1? Because a lot of what we were hoping for was, yo, we're getting all this cool graphics and we're still going to have all the juice and stuff we love about PoE 1. But PoE 1 and PoE 2, separate games now, and PoE 2, probably going to be a hard pill for a lot to swallow, is a massive power reset. We've been in the millions, approaching billions of damage on people's characters. Power has gone up and up and up, right? And PoE 2 is clearly trying to reset that power curve. They're trying to take the multipliers out of support gems. They're trying to make the passive tree maybe weaker, make gear weaker. A lot of that stuff is to be a big reset of power. And I think largely why they're doing this is to make bosses interesting, along with making monsters compelling as well. The idea was, basically, I'm imagining, PoE 1 were so powerful, it's unfair for monsters. In order for those monsters to kill us, they have to have some unfair mechanics. And I think they want to draw it back to the line of maybe monsters can be more fair, more telegraphed, more you can play around the mechanics and it can feel good to engage with, but at the cost of we have to make your character weaker to compensate to make it a compelling challenge of a game sort of thing is, I guess, my perspective of why they're doing this. And just a make computation and calculation easier. Granted, they want to start PoE2's power down here, and I think a large part of that is also so that way later on they can give us cool things and we can jump up the ladder of power creep of cool this, cool that, and cycle up, and then maybe eventually we get a PoE3, which will maybe be another power reset. You never know. But point is, that's why I think a lot of this stuff is happening. So those are the massive changes. Now let's go into the just big changes that are essentially the differences between PoE2 and what current PoE is. Now the big, and this is all about massive power reset, is, hey, bench crafting stuff, that's no longer a thing. There's no meta craft, there's no fixing your res on gear. This will remind you of a lot of Ruthless, and there's a reason why people are saying, hey, it's like Ruthless. I don't think it's really like Ruthless. I think there's still a lot of distinct differences, but there are things that reset or weaken your power that would be basically crossover from what is something that is in Ruthless that is also going to be in PoE2. Hence the association, although I think it's not, I think it's a bit overstated to say the least. Okay, next up, no Quicksilver. They've said things like, we want reactive flasks. I interpret this as basically utility power for flasks is just, it's just getting dumpsters. It's just getting deleted. It's another way to reset power. They're also introducing a well refill flask system. This is a buff. All in all, I can't see myself enjoying this system. I have never enjoyed flasks in ARPGs personally. I think they're super boring. I always thought Path of Exile's system was the future. It was revolutionary. It was cool. It was interesting. You could build around those flasks. They gave you another basically dynamic lever to min-max and have some level of change of how you build your character. And I think this is honestly a step backwards in the genre. I think what they had was an amazing system, and I can't see this feeling better. I probably will end up essentially just trying to build my characters so I don't even need to press the flash button, because I don't think, I would rather, I'll put it this way, I would rather be pressing some sort of ability or skill that's like Enduring Cry, where I press it to like regenerate a bunch of life, or I attack enemy with an ability that leeches to heal myself. I'd rather it be my character doing something to heal myself or sustain my mana, rather than just, oh, I pulled out a potion and I drank it and now I'm all better or whatever. Like, that's conceptually to me, it's kind of boring, and in terms of gameplay, I don't necessarily enjoy it. So we'll see how that pans out, and we'll see if they stick to their guns on that. Support gems not being multipliers. If you looked at any of the support gems throughout the showcase, they are weak or they're cool. Like, some of them are cool. Like, the chance to cast on shock, that has interesting implications. It seems like it might be something that's balanced around mana cost. Who knows? But the idea is essentially they're trying to take away all the, I'm just putting on support gems for damage, to I'm putting on this support gem to make this skill do something interesting or something that helps my ability. And that will encourage their multi-skill playstyle, I think is what they're shooting for. Not sure entirely. But the takeaway on this is I'm not sure they're doing it well. Chain support had a 50% less damage multiplier. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not sure if you're like, say you're doing, like, you're using chain support to make your ability good at clearing. I'm not sure attaching the 50% less damage multiplier is worth it for the clear it offers. If you make all my projectiles deal 50% less damage, and then the advantage is they get to hit an enemy, hit a different enemy for a second hit, and I now have to shoot twice to kill one enemy, but then it'll kill the enemy behind it. I think I'd rather just shoot once, kill the first enemy, and then shoot twice to kill the second enemy, because a lot of times it's just going to be one enemy on you, or whatever it is, and I don't know about that. That seems like a really scuffed multiplier. Maybe with levels it gets better and it feels worth it, but conceptually I'm like, ugh, I don't know about that one. For example, another support gem we saw was Spell Echo. Zizaran dropped it in his showcase, and Spell Echo on it has less cast speed, and it has a less damage multiplier. But it's like Unleash, where once you get the cast off, it will occur twice, but it occurs at a delay, a 0.5 second delay. So if you would have noticed, he was excited about this Spell Echo drop, but I honestly think it made his demo and his playthrough worse, because he put it on, and he started getting stun locked because he couldn't get the cast off. The 25% less cast speed modifier, which I don't think he read the gem fully, he didn't realize it, but it was actually making him die because he was just getting stun locked. He was taking too long to cast his spell, And so, I don't know. Like, at base, this to me seems like massive power reset, and also 6 links don't matter much anymore, or at least I don't think they will if they have no multipliers. They have to really pull off this utility thing. I'm open to see what they can do. We'll see what it's like, but it definitely is like, okay, is a 1 link that much different than a 6 link if your link supports are making you get stun locked and they're barely giving you any damage? We'll see what it's like. Next up, these are basically a lot of the good things. The bosses look amazing. The animations look amazing. Sound design, graphics, it's all incredible. They're making what looks like to be a very compelling package. I love it. I think it's very good. Question is, as a PoE player, it will be a hard wake-up call with all this basically power diminishing or power reset that they're doing. On top of that, they're changing something that is what we know as corpse rushing. It's basically changing PoE from a it's basically I delete you, you delete me, to we're in this battle, we're in this engagement. It's more of a Dark Souls style of boss life resets, the zone refills with monsters on death. I like it and I don't like it. I think it has cool consequences of feeling really like it gives you the accomplishment of when you beat the boss, and there's so many bosses. I think it's gonna be fun, but it also, if your character sucks or you're not very good at the mechanics, it could also be extremely frustrating for players and new players. We'll see the balance of that, of people picking up PoE to start off with, not knowing what they're doing. Can they get through Act 1? Can they get through Act 2? Is it going to be just a hard stomp them until they give up? Or is it going to be like a Dark Souls style where it's so satisfying, you learn the game, you get better at it, and it ends up being a great thing? I don't know. We're going to see when we actually get to PoE 2. Another big change, and this is part of the power reset, is no alterations, no scours, and they're changing Chaos Orbs. All this stuff to me is they're just essentially ripping out the power of crafting in current PoE. You can build an item with just a good base all the way up to perfection in PoE, and this to me signals they're trying to take that out to try to, I think, again, power resetting. They're trying to put back the it's exciting to drop items, and part of the way they're doing is making it so we can't craft gear. And that makes items more exciting because ID scrolls are now way more valuable. If you play SSF, in my experience with SSF, it's been ID scrolls are king because I don't have many Chaos Orbs, but I drop freaking 50 rares in a map and I'm going to ID all of them and I'm maybe going to get an upgrade. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, I'm not sure. Another big change is gold. They're adding it to the game. I like this for a few reasons. I think it's new player friendly. I think it smooths out the early game. But the big question I have in mind is, does it kill the beauty of the current PoE economy? And the answer is I don't know. Because it used to be you have Chaos Orbs, you have Divines. There was basically a breakdown of currencies. If we use this to trade for that, sometimes we list items in Divines because they're really valuable. Divines Exalt, sometimes we list it in Mirrors, sometimes we list it in Chaos Orbs. But with gold in the system, does everybody just get the standardized currency now? Is everything just 5,000 gold, 10,000 gold, 20,000 gold, 1 million gold? Does it kind of lose the beauty of the system that PoE is? I don't know. I'm kind of worried about this, to be honest. I'm kind of hoping gold is non-tradable. Instant pickup, non-tradable, and the system's still balanced like what current PoE is. The currency has value for what it does and how rare it is. But we'll see about that. Next up is builds can spec into multiple specialties and swap seamlessly. This is revolutionary to me. It's very, very cool. It's very interesting. I like this a lot. You can see the showcase of basically when they're swapping the skill gems. Octavian's using a sorcerer, and he's showing that you can swap between a cold-based staff and a lightning-based staff, and the passive tree can swap accordingly. That's very cool. I think it's revolutionary for ARPGs. Very interesting. I like it a lot. We'll see how that plays out, how that feels to play. If it ends up being, oh, maybe this is too much setup, I don't know. I mean, for PoE, we just love the complexity, and it's just another layer of that's something cool we can customize. After that, there's a Gambler in Town that's basically a gold sink. I like this and I don't like this. We'll see how it feels. I've always I think I've mostly enjoyed it in games where I've been able like to go to a gambler of some sort. I can target one specific gear slot. Say I randomly drop like I drop good gloves, I drop good boots, I drop a good belt, I drop good body armor, but for whatever reason I haven't found any good rings. Well, now I can target specifically the ring slot to try to roll a decent ring. I like it. I think it's honestly a lot of fun in ARPGs. We'll see how it plays out. Another big thing is the closed beta starts in June 2024. Me and a lot of other people were like, yo, PoE 2 for Christmas this year? No. We're going to wait another year. I'm bummed, and at the same time, I'm like, yo, take the time you need to make the best possible product. Do not release a half-finished product, charge us $70, and then charge us a battle pass. You know, that would be terrible, right? Next up, we have Spirit. New system to separate mana from auras. I think this is interesting. It will be completely a balance shift. It'll be interesting a new system to try to figure out. I like it. I don't like it. I'm not sure, to be honest. Mostly, I think it's going to be cool. We'll see how it pans out. But basically, it's a new system for your reservation spaces, and it allows you to balance minions when there's basically a bunch of 6-links in the game. I think that's another reason they did it, because essentially, if you could have 10 6-link minions, that maybe would get out of hand. That being said, links, as we discussed earlier, are much, much weaker. So maybe if you had 10 6-link permanent minions, it wouldn't be that overpowered after all. I'm not really sure. And then, of course, you have the announcement of not just 6 base classes, but 12 base classes, each with 3 ascendancies. So 36 new ascendancies, 1,500 passes on the tree, or basically brand new tree. I'm excited. That is what I love about PoE. It's the new build variety. It's the, oh my goodness, let me explore this sandbox. That sounds incredible. They didn't really show much of it. We got a couple glimpses when they were showcasing the gear swapping with Octavian. Mostly the passives, from what I gathered. Basically, there was a node that had +1 cold spell. There was a node that had basically 6 pen with 6 cold exposure. There was a node that had 20% lightning damage and 6% pen. From what I gathered, some of the nodes seemed like maybe they were like 20% weaker. Like, for example, Heart of Thunder in PoE 1, it has 16% damage, 16% damage, 16% damage, 30% damage, 6% pen. In PoE 2, Heart of Thunder, 10% damage, 10% damage, 10% damage, 20% damage, 6% pen. So it seems like a little bit weaker in the passive tree itself, but also like the +1 cold skill, that seems like a stronger node. So it's a rebalance of like the passive tree. I think it's maybe weaker, maybe stronger. I don't know, but it looked cool. It looked interesting. It's going to be fun to explore when we're making new builds. So I'm incredibly excited for this stuff. And it's part of the reason why the fact that closed beta is in June is such a bummer, because it's like, man, I have to wait so long to explore this new incredible game. I'm looking forward to it. That's the big changes. There's probably a few I missed, but those are the main takeaways I had looking at this stuff. I'm sure there's some I missed. Now, Exilecon showcase expectation versus actual game. This is a thing where a lot of times while I was streaming, people would come into the stream and be, man, this looks incredibly slow, sluggish, boring game. I am not excited. It deflated my balloon. What the hell is going on? And this is like, I think there's 2 sides of this. Or there's multiple dimensions to this, I should say. Reason for this, as far as I know, basically what people have asked the devs about it, or what makes sense as like somebody watching Exilecon, is they want to show off the animation, the graphical work, the incredible boss design. They want to let us see all that stuff, and they want it to be played out in painstaking detail. They want it to seem massively like, oh, look at this is incredible. These bosses are hard. You gotta fight through them. You gotta slug through them. But let me give you some counter information to try to assuage your worries about, man, is this game just going to be completely a slog? Because I don't think it will. Path of Exile largely has the idea of, if you make a bad character, you're going to have a bad time, or it's going to be hard to play. And my argument when watching this, and I'll back it up with basically details I've deduced from looking through the playthroughs, is they set these characters up to fail. I think their passive trees are basically like skeletons. They're nothing of value, really. They have terrible gear for the level they are. And not only that, they don't necessarily have they don't have their ascendancies or anything like that. So I think they're very weak in terms of power for the content they're trying to showcase. The worst of this example was the warrior, and I think it basically follows a pattern of the higher up in level you got, the more screwed the character was, because the tree and gear did not progress to the level you would actually be at if you played through the game to that point, in my opinion. So to start things off with, to break this down, the warrior character, it had 900 life, it had 30 all res, it had 30 regen per second, which on a 900 life pool, it's only 3% regen. I don't think it had leech when I watched the gameplay. And if you break that character down and you say, I have a level 45 character, what does that represent? What can we associate that with? Well, just looking at the skill, you know, it's an 80% attack speed skill, 86 base percent damage skill. That's how we can take his weapon and we can kind of get a calculation for how much attack speed he has on his tree and how much percent damage scaling he has. And this gives us an idea to rework and basically re-engineer how good is his character's tree. And the answer is it's really bad. So basically what I came to the conclusion was, and he had 12% attack speed on gloves, so I factored that in. So he more has like 26% attack speed total. But basically the tree he has to get to this average hit damage was about 200% damage on his tree. To get to 900 life, he had 80 life just on his gloves, and I didn't even factor in if he had life anywhere else on his tree. If he was level 45 character based on the current scaling of the game. Now, this is PoE 2 versus PoE 1. How much did they change? We don't know. Maybe their base life scaling per level is lower. Who knows? But in terms of what we know, that would be like if you had 15% life on your tree, 200% damage, 14% attack speed. If you put this tree together on path of building, if you were trying to make this tree, like say I'm going to take a marauder and I'm trying to get 200% damage, 15% life, and like about 20% attack speed. I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you what it looks like real quick here. It's not hard to make the tree. This is the tree right here. This is literally, this is the tree. This is the entire tree. 20 passive points. That gets you more percent damage. It gets you basically the same attack speed, and it gets you a little bit higher life. See if I made this character level 45, you'll see this character has 800 life. That doesn't factor in the fact you have 80 flat life on your gloves. That is the character we're looking at. He's a level 45 character, and he's gone through multiple acts. So if he gets passive points at all during the acts, the rough power level of his passive tree is like a level 15 character. And they have him doing level 45 content. And if you've played PoE, you know that means you're screwed. You try to take a level 15 character into level 45 content, you're gonna get dunked on. And that's, I think, largely what happened in the showcase. I think we're gonna get to the point where we can really kind of destroy some bosses. I don't think it's gonna be anywhere close to as weak as this gameplay showcase was, but hopefully that gives some perspective of how weak they set up these characters and how much they're set up to fail. Keep in mind, there's even more factors, like, for example, this base weapon, I'm pretty sure is from an earlier act, and it's not got good mods on it. For example, when Mathel did his showcase, and he was like, he went in, he did the warrior showcase, he dropped a white base. That white base weapon had as much damage as this current base weapon. And that current base weapon had like a 50% fizz damage roll. So it's just to showcase that if you have vendor recipes in the game, which they say there still are, you're going to be able to make a better weapon. You're going to be able... Like, you're not going to be this trashed. Your character is going to be quite a bit more competitive. And in another example of that was Preparian, when he did his or Huntress showcase, he was weak. He dropped one white weapon. He threw one transmute on it. He put it on, and all of a sudden, he was just decimating. He killed, like, the perennial boss, his half phase. He did it in, like, 30 seconds. It wasn't like this slog. He just demolished it. It might have even been less than 30 seconds. I like looked away, looked back, and the perennial boss he was fighting, he had already defeated. It was a massive difference. And the only difference is he upgraded his weapon. Granted, I think he still had a bad passive tree, but he was level 17. So I think for the content he was in, his passive tree was probably still a bit less screwed than the guy who's level 45 with a level 15 passive tree. Because, you know, I think it'd be easier to be a level 5 doing level 15 content than a level 15 doing level 45 content. You get the idea. But the point is, I know they wanted to show off the animation graphical work, but they should have at least done a counterpoint of, yo, here's the character that's spec'd correctly for the content. We played this character through the campaign to this point, picked up appropriate gear. This is what you would actually look like if you got to this content. That counterexample would be great to basically assuade people's concerns about, man, is my character just gonna suck? Am I not even ever gonna feel powerful? Like that type of question. Anyways, moving on. My conclusions. PoE 2 looks amazing. It has all the DNA of PoE 1. big passive tree, massive skills you can use on any class you want, cool weapon design, cool item design. It's got all of that stuff, but it is a power reset. I'm kind of down for it. I'm kind of excited to try something that feels different, that is new, with the same DNA of what I love about Path of Exile. I'm open to it. I'm excited to see what it's like. That being said, my other main takeaway is PoE2 needs to not be on a skeleton crew anymore. If they're going to take away a lot of what current PoE1 players love, which is they love to move fast, they love to be cracked out of their mind, demicods, destroying the screen, zipping through maps, well, they probably need to start taking care of PoE1 a little bit better. They need to have a more consistent balance cycle on it, that sort of thing. That's my conclusions. That's my takeaway for Exilecon. I honestly liked watching it all. I'm really excited about playing PoE2. It looks like a lot of fun, and honestly, it was cool just to see all the different developers talk about the stuff they love to do. The art guy, the sound guy. Man, I'm so bad. I don't remember all their names, but you had Kane and Kamal, you had Alexander, you had Sam and Ed, the animation guys. I feel bad. The art guy was really cool. I liked him a lot, and I didn't even remember his name, but he clearly cared about what he was doing, and he was just making cool stuff, and he was trying to make a good game and something he loved to do. And that passion, I think, translates to why we're going to get a good game. That being said, we got to wait a year, and hopefully in the meantime, PoE1 keeps getting some cool updates. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.